Hey everybody, welcome back to Build at Home. I'm Ricky Camilleri coming to you from my home in Bushwick, Brooklyn. I'm joined right now by the extremely funny, extremely talented Chris D'Elia, whose new special, No Pain, is on Netflix. I watched it yesterday. It's hilarious. We're going to talk all about it and probably a little bit about quarantine life for him right now. But before we do that, I want to say something that we've been saying at the top of all these interviews, which is that millions of kids across the country need us right now. Over 700 million school lunches have gone missing due to the closures of schools because of the coronavirus. If you would like to help, donate, volunteer, please go to nokidhungry.org where you can find out how we can help get all of these kids the meals that they need. Chris, good to see you. How are you hanging in there, sir?
Good to see you. Good to see anybody now, man. I just
Right?
did. I just did. I haven't touched. I realized that I haven't touched anybody in a month except for my family and that I live with, and then that's it. And I went to do Joe Rogan's podcast yesterday, and I said to him, I texted him, I was like, "Are you still doing this? Should we do this or whatever?" And he was like, "Yeah, I have a doctor here. He's going to test you first." So I was like, "Okay." And I got tested, and I was negative, but I was like, "What if I was positive?" He'd just be like, "Okay, gotta go home."
Wait, can I ask a question? How is Joe Rogan's podcast getting tests?
Well, because Joe's paying for it. That's why. Joe's basically Bruce Wayne. That's why.
Unreal. I don't want to let my blood pressure go off the chart while I'm doing an interview with you, but that is wild to me.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of tests. There's plenty of doctors. There's plenty of tests out there. I just, it's just, I just think that it's tough for the actual public to get it, which sucks. It sucks, but
yeah. How has outside of not touching anybody but your family, how has quarantine life been going for you? What have you been doing to stay sane?
I've been just kind of I'm starting to write a book. I'm doing my own. I still do my own podcast here in this room, so I'm able to do that. And hanging out with my family. I have a newborn, so that's kind of the silver lining for me about it. Yeah, thanks, bud. So that's the silver lining for me about it. At least I get to hang out with that guy. You know what I mean? And it's like, I wouldn't, I was supposed to have road dates, and I'm lucky that I get to kind of hang in the daytime anyway because I'm a comedian. But it's cool to be with him, and just kind of, like be able to enjoy that.
Yeah. How newly born?
2 months. We just eked it out. He was born. He was born, and then this whole thing went down, and then it's like we're hearing stuff. Oh, husbands or the baby father or whatever, they can't be in the room while giving birth now because it's like, yeah. So, and we know other people that are having kids now, and they're doing it, but it's much different.
Well, congratulations on being a father.
Thanks, man.
Let's talk about No Pain. I loved it, and as I was saying before we even got started, one of the things that I love is that you talk about coming from really nice parents, which comedians rarely talk about. This is what number special is this for you?
So in total, this is my third one on Netflix, but fourth, yeah.
So what made you 4 specials in finally kind of start talking about that?
I didn't think, there was a part of me in the back of my head that didn't think I had the right to be talking about that stuff because it didn't come from this romantic notion of comedy comes from pain, which I talk about in the special. And that's something that people just started saying, and it's of course very true in certain situations, but I realized it doesn't have to be. And, I did 2 specials where I was just talking about the silly things that I thought of. And then Man on Fire, my one before this, No Pain one, was a little bit more kind of me branching out from that and talking about my opinions on things. And this one is that. This one is the thing where it's like, okay, I'm not going to be insecure that I don't have something terrible to draw from, but I can still make people laugh, and I can still laugh myself, and I can still have fun and do stand-up. It's like, there's no rules. Why are we making up these rules?
Was that something that you felt insecure about when you first started doing comedy before you even had specials, where you just didn't find that you were particularly I mean, you probably are like a slightly dark guy. I mean, if you're doing comedy, I'm sure you have a macabre sense of humor in some ways, but
It all comes from, I think, inside your head. I don't think it necessarily
right,
comes from what happens to you. You know, like being an out. You're not who you're who you are in your head. You're not who
right.
you are to everybody. You know. So, but yeah, in that sense, I'm a darker person, but it wasn't from the things that have made me that way. It was just from either my brain chemistry or that kind of thing. But yeah, I was a little insecure about it. I mean, I'm I'm a pretty confident guy, but like but when I got but when I would go on, I think part of you has to be when you go on stage. And but I think that I would always think like there are those guys who the bloggers or whatever you want to say, or that would eventually say like, this guy grew up in Hollywood and his dad is successful, and I'm like, and I would always try to be like, it wouldn't like hurt my feelings, but I would be like, why is that not okay? And then I was like, "Well, I mean, it is okay." And so the fourth special, I just laid into it because I thought, double down.
That's such a strange thing that I wonder if is like a more recent phenomena, which is the need to categorize people all the
Yeah,
time based on their background. Like
yeah,
this guy grew up in Hollywood and his dad was successful, so
yeah,
assuming that that is the narrative that I have sort of cast upon everybody
yeah.
of that nature, it feels like that is far more prevalent than I don't know if it used to be or not.
Oh, well, we don't know if it used to be because there wasn't the internet, that's for sure. Yeah, now, I mean, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but now those people are finding each other, and it's weird, man. It's weird. I don't read reviews of my stuff. I try to stay out of the comments because it'll just drive you crazy. But yeah, I saw a thing that was like, well, Chris D'Elia says his childhood was good, but what he didn't mention was, and he mentioned a whole bunch of other things that were good in my life, and it was like he was like trying to drag me. I'm like, what is it? And then he was like, he should have talked about that, and I was like, what? The special is about what the special is about. What are you talking about? Like,
Wait, he was
you know,
trying to drag you for having a good life?
exactly. And that's the whole point of the special. That's the whole point of the special. That's why I'm talking about it.
Like, drag away, man. My life is sick. It's great.
It was weird, man. But people are weird, man. Everybody has an outlet. Everybody has a Twitter account, and so it's like, what are you gonna do? I just gotta make sure that I'm making myself laugh through this whole thing, and then I'm good.
Yeah. Some of the other stuff that you talk about in the special, and I was reminded of it because you just said you've started feeling more comfortable sharing your opinions and not just
Mhm.
thoughts, things that
Yeah.
are silly. Is that you also talk about that oftentimes you don't even have an opinion?
Oh yeah. Well, on stuff that's like that, there are a lot of things where people have a really hard. Like, dude, I have an opinion on really benign bullshit, like
Hmm.
things that don't matter. And to me, I think that that's what's funny. But when people are like, "Hey, man, what do you think? What's going on in the world?" I'm like, "Man, talk to me about paper clips." Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, like, it's like we don't really know what's going out there. And every time I say something about anything, like I was talking about Pizzagate on the podcast the other day, and people were like, "Bro, do your research." And I'm like, "You think you know what happened just because you Googled it?" Like, so it's so hard to develop an opinion about things that we don't actually know. So
Yeah.
I stick to the very, very like benign stuff that isn't political, isn't because who knows? Who knows?
You also talk about audiences consistent or need to be outraged and have outraged opinions specifically on comedians, but you kind of it feels like you're I don't want to say playing it both ways because it's not that, but you feel both ways in the sense where it's like it's annoying to be outraged at a joke, but at the same time, it's annoying for a comedian to say it's the worst time to be a comedian.
Yeah, it is annoying. Look, it's annoying to be annoyed. It's annoying when people are mad at a joke, but it is also annoying for comedians to keep saying, "Why can't we say any?" Like the notion that comedians have to stop saying things. Some comedians are like, "We can't say any," and you're like, "Dude, you're making that up." Like the
Mm-hmm.
comedians can say anything they want. It's up to the audience to laugh or not laugh. my point is, people are going to be upset no matter what you say. Really, trust me. If people are getting upset about certain of the jokes that I do on tour, then they're going to be upset about anything. I mean, I make stuff up. I make up jokes that, I take real life situations that happen to me and then I make silly things that could have happened. And if you're going to get mad at that, things that have never happened, then well, there's nothing I can do. Right. So my hope is, as a comedian, I do my thing, and there's enough people out there that are going to like it, that are going to find it, and they're going to help me have a career. So it's like the notion of, you can be mad at somebody for saying something, but you can't tell them not to say it. But also, as a comedian, you can't be like, we can't talk about this, we can't talk about that. Like, you can talk about anything. That's up to you, man. That's up to you. And then
I wonder,
the laughing is up to them.
You do an amazing bit. It kind of feels like in some ways the set piece of the whole set, if you will, which is this sort of made up racist observation.
Oh yeah.
That you use as an example, and I'm wondering how long it took you to craft that bit outside of just the initial idea, but taking it on stage and seeing what works and how to play it and how to fine tune that.
It was the last, probably. It was always something that I'll do like that was a bit that needed the end of it, and I would do the bit, and I didn't have the end for like a long time, and I'll just keep doing the bit until I think of it on stage. Because to me, if I feel like, for me, I've learned that I'm best in the moment rather than sitting down and writing, and I'll get that if I just keep going on stage and keep going on stage. And I finally got that part that you're talking about, and that was the point I wanted to make one day on stage, and that was like one of the last things that I added to the act. And when I did, I was so happy, because you get this feeling where it's like, oh, they laughed hard, and it was the point I wanted to make, and also it was funny to me, and those are like the three things that like that I make me happiest as a comedian, and they all came together. And it took a long time to get that, because I would try other things, and sometimes you do things, and look, one thing, at least I would say 99% of comedians are never trying to be, is racist. They're trying to be funny. So if it comes off as racist or problematic or whatever, too judgmental, then we'll fix it. We'll try to fix it. And so hopefully it becomes, something like that bit. For me, I felt like it worked. But it took a while,
Did you ever have that while you were fine tuning it in front of an audience, where you were like, oh, I stepped in one direction a little too much, and it feels like,
it happens usually where you'll do it, and like a lot of my bits are like long and drawn out, because I think that's funny. Some people don't, but I think that it's funny to milk the bit as long as you possibly can. And sometimes you go too long or too far, and the audience will let you hear it. And I rarely hear like, oh, I talk about it in my special once, how I heard it. I went too far, or at least they thought I did. But I rarely hear that. I'll just hear the laughter kind of like not be as hard as, and I was like, oh, okay, I think this is a little too far,
And that's where you end up modifying and
unless it's something that I really think is funny and I believe, and so I just try and modify it. I won't drop it, but I'll be like, I can get this to work. Or sometimes it's just about saying it harder and believing in it more, and not being insecure about saying it. It's all about performance too.
Right. Your bit about Tupac, I relate, not because it's Tupac, but I just related so hard to the idea of these sort of cultural badasses and wanting so badly to have a moment like that in your life, but knowing I will never have a moment where I am. And also, to be badass, you have to not care about the other person's reaction.
Of course, yeah.
And I only care about other people's reactions.
That's funny, yeah. I think as a comedian, you have to, it's this whole thing where it's like, you have to, like, I always say, I'd rather have people boo at me than just not laugh or not do anything. Because like, I want at least to make an impression. I want people to at least react. You know, it's like it's one thing to be like, you get addicted to laughs, but you get addicted to reactions. But on the other hand, as a comedian, you have to process that, but you have to not give a fuck about it, because if you care, then that's going to affect what you say. But you have to trust yourself. I mean, I've been doing this for 14 years, and I have to trust my. I have to trust when I'm on stage, and it's hard to always do this, but I have to trust when I'm on stage is okay. They came to see me. They want to see what I say. They don't want to see what they think I should say, even though
Mhm.
they think they want to see that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, I have to trust me and relax and not actually care about what they're thinking, but also I need to know what they're thinking. It's a really interesting thing, actually, to me.
Do you think that there is like a prevalence with comedians, I think specifically male, to want to be badass a little bit? I think so much about like all of the stand-up specials for an extended period of time that were called like Triggered, or like,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
comedians want to be like
Um,
Lenny Bruce, like I'm a badass, I tell the truth.
I think that there is. Here's the thing about like taking. Here's the bottom line. You need, and most comedians have this, but there are some that don't. Like, you need humility. You
Yeah.
need to talk about. You need to paint yourself as the idiot. At least sometimes. If you don't do that, then people just feel disconnected. People just will people can become short-term fans of you, but I don't think that anyone really wants to get behind that guy. You take even like super alpha comedians like Joe Rogan. That guy's the first to be like, I'm an idiot, and that's part of the reason what makes him successful in my head. It's like, you have to have that humility. If you don't, you just become. Yeah, look at Andrew Dice Clay. He was big
Right.
for a while, but then it's like, okay, that's not how you really are. Or if it is, then I can't get behind that for any length of time because you're just acting like a badass.
Or it's like you stop doing stand-up comedy and just become like a mega movie star. Like
Right. Yeah.
that's where you
That's
kind of see the humility get lost, and
yeah.
they can't really do. That's why it feels like that's why they stop doing
Yeah.
stand-up. They just
Yeah.
don't have
Yeah.
the material.
Yeah. No, there's guys who are like that, and it's just it's fine. They're movie stars now and great, but
Sure, they're doing fine.
sure. Yeah.
They're doing fine as movie stars.
Yeah.
So when did you know from touring and working on the material that the material was ready for a special?
Uh like I did this tour for over a year and a half, I would say, and it started as, I mean, there was definitely 45 minutes that was in that beginning tour that is not in this special. So I kind of, as I would go, I would get bored of stuff, or it wouldn't make sense in the hour that I wanted to do. Like the tour was called Follow the Leader, and
Hmm.
that title made sense for that tour. And as I kept going with it, I kept calling it the Follow the Leader tour because I didn't want people to think they were seeing a whole new hour. And then when I shot it for Netflix, Netflix was like, "What do you want to call it?" And I was like, "Well, I just been calling it Follow the Leader tour." And they were like, "Okay, just think about that." And I was like, "Oh,
They don't
yeah."
like it.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know if they didn't like it, but they were. But I was talking about my manager, and I was like, maybe it doesn't make sense with what the whole new thing is. And No Pain was just, oh, that makes sense. Like the
Right.
whole thing about not having pain wasn't in the beginning of the tour.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So this was a more yeah. So it's when I knew it was ready was once I started talking about that stuff, because to me that was like the real heart of it, if there is any. You know what I mean?
Right, you found a core. Who is the director of the special? Is that your brother?
My brother, yeah, he's a
Ha-
director, and
Has he directed a number of your specials, or is this the
no,
first?
so my dad did. My dad's a
Oh wow.
director, and I had him do it because I love my family and they're the best and they know me better than anybody. So I was like, that was a no brainer. And then I just wanted to shake things up. And my brother, when my dad directed my first special, my brother was a kid, and so now he's a man. And I was like, all right, I'll ask Matt. I'll do something different. So I fired my dad in front of my
Yeah.
brother, and then I hired my brother. And my dad was like, the emotion was like, "What? You're firing me?" And then he was like, "Oh, that's awesome." My dad was like that. So,
We're like, Dad, you're out of this one.
yep, 100%.
Is this so? What kind of directing did your dad do prior to directing your specials? Did he mainly direct live, like TV
No,
events?
no, he
Like,
mainly
oh,
he mainly directed television. He did a lot
oh,
of like
cool,
episodic stuff. Yeah, yeah, and some
cool.
movies, some independent movie stuff. Yeah, but TV movies.
As much as you love your family, is it difficult sort of disagreeing with them, or when you have disagreements about the content, or is it basically like they're kind of it's your show, they're kind of serving you and
Pretty
offering?
much, it's pretty much they trust me. But yeah, my dad would sometimes be like, I don't know about saying this, but but with my dad, it's a bit of a generational thing, because he's
Right.
72 and I'm 40, and I'm like, that's what's kind of funny now.
Yeah.
That happens rarely. I mean, that may have happened twice, but with my brother, it's more stuff like, hey, when you do this, if you can try to sit here because it's better for the shot. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's shit I would never think of. So yeah, but nothing about the
Right.
act.
So before I let you go, you said you're in the middle of writing a book. Do you want to promote that, or is it very early
It's
stages?
still really early. So I'm just kind of doing the outline and figuring out what the book's about. So I don't even know what I
Cool.
would say, what it's about, but I'm looking for it to be coming out next year at some point. And it's a humorous book, it's not like I'm writing Catcher in the Rye or anything like that. Although Catcher in the Rye is really funny. But
It
yeah,
is a very funny book. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Chris, it's a pleasure to talk to you. It's good to see that you're healthy, that you're safe, that you're enjoying some family time, man. And congrats on being a new father.
Hey, thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. All of that. Thank you very much. It was nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you. No Pain is on Netflix now. I highly recommend if you're watching this and you haven't watched it yet, you go watch it when you're done watching this interview. We'll finish the interview first.
That's right. Yeah, there you go.
Take care, Chris.
All right, buddy. Be good. Thank you.